Here's a highlight from a recent episode of Booked on Rock. Brian Anderson, he's the author of Loud and Clear, The Grateful Dead's Wall of Sound and the Quest for Audio Perfection.
That very famous Europe 72 tour, they hit Munich, and the fire marshal and the fire brigade were like really hassling the crew when they were setting everything up. They were like looking at the manifest of gear, like the inventory that they had with them, asking all these questions about like how much power they're going to be using and so forth. The show gets going, and the fire brigade in Munich doubled the number of fire brigadiers, I guess, present on the scene. So like the venue was crawling with folks from the fire brigade. They were backstage, they were standing on the stage behind the back line, which was like kind of a no-no at the time. They were out in the crowd, and supposedly some of these fire brigadiers had buckets of sand to like snuff out fires, right? So they were convinced that the Grateful Dead were like using up so much power through this like crazy electronic beast that they were going to set the venue on fire, right? So as the show got going, on top of one of his amplifiers, he had like a big hash joint, right? That he was,
Well, it was the exact wording from the book, a huge, fat, badly rolled hash joint.
there you go, huge, fat, badly rolled hash joint. So, and that was like sat on top of his amplifier. The smoke from that was like going up into the lights. And apparently, one of the fire captains freaked out and instead of a bucket of sand, got a bucket of water and threw it like kind of over Garcia's amp, and the whole place went dark. The audience in response started, lighting matches, right? In the darkness, and that like pissed off the fire captain even more, right? So eventually they got the power restored to finish the show. And there's some conflicting reports because, memories from this time, memory is a funny thing, right? And I talk about this in the book, but there's some people who remember that incident leading to like half of Munich being like blacked out that night. And
Yes.
supposedly you could hear, later on after the show at night, you could hear like transformers around town, just like boom,
Oh my
busting.
God.
Yeah. So that sort of thing was just sort of illustrative of the Dead being way out on the edge, insisting that they do everything their own way. And, they knew they couldn't rely on some of these old, decrepit European venues to like supply enough power. So what they would do is they would clamp into the main city, like the municipal line, which is crazy. They would like drill down into the ground and like clamp on to like get enough juice, right? There's all sorts of stories in the book about like, close calls like that, and everything was electric. It was such an electric time.